make a decision, like the word divorce is thrown around, and his father asks him if there's any part of him that wants to save the divorce. And he must have said yes, because his father gave him this book. And it was part of this program called the Love Dare, where he used to take one day at a time for 40 days and move towards his marriage. And that's really where he finds a lot of his resistance to commitment, really to the spirit. And I just found it really powerful, because it's a bit like what we experience with the course. Like, we've got this curriculum that's very, very structured to continue to uncover and move through the blocks in our mind. And yeah, commitment just really stood out to me, because I watched this beautiful transformation with this man, where he went from pretty consistently wrong-minded to consistently right-minded, and it's just very beautiful. And so, yeah, I feel a little bit vulnerable and raw today, because I feel like this is for me, like this is my prayer. And so, yeah, Jason, I wondered if you just had anything either from that movie or just some initial thoughts about commitment that felt to offer.
Yeah, well, I too love that topic, especially right now, because yeah, the purpose that I came down was, we've been practicing with the community, really letting everybody get in touch with what it is they feel, and for a few months, and yet now the heart and the real dedication to listening and following, it's got to come back in again. And everybody got to see where they made decisions that were perhaps autonomous, and now it's like, okay, great, that seeming freedom was there, but true freedom lies in kind of what I was feeling this morning when I was outside meditating. I felt Jesus was speaking to me, saying that true freedom lies in never letting an ego thought even enter in the first place. And in order for that to happen, you have to make a commitment to the means that Jesus gives, because a lot of times you'll hear people say, yeah, I want to wake up, or I want God, but unless they're extremely happy in that moment, then they really haven't accepted the means that the Spirit or Jesus wants to give them to go towards that light. And then they'll say, well, I'm not afraid of the means. Or they'll say, I'm not afraid of the light. But if they're afraid of the means, they are actually afraid of the light beyond. So I know that's where your heart is right now, is you just want to recognize the means, and you want to say yes to the means and lay down any mask that's there and just, go for that love. And that movie Fireproof, I thought was really profound, because my favorite scene was the first 20 days. He's going for it. He's following all the instructions, just like the Course says. He didn't even believe in the Love 40-Day Dare program, but he did it anyways. And his wife never once turned into him and said thank you for anything that he did. And he said, this program is stupid. But the 20th day, his dad called him, his father, and said, well, what are you really doing this program for? Do you really think it's about getting your wife back? He said, this is a transformation for you, and you have to let go of all the expectations. And God is doing this in your life to transform you. As soon as he did that, something in him totally shifted, and he realized that this commitment was for him to become better. And then in the next 20 days, he worked on letting go of any form outcome to be any different than what it was. So much so that at the 43rd day, he was still doing it, and he realized he didn't have to be, but the transformation had gone so far into his heart that, maybe you want to share about this, but his wife showed up at the firehouse on the 43rd day, and she came back. She came back to him, but he had already gone through such a transformation that it didn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, I found that so touching, because there was just such a the scene one of the scenes Jason's describing is his wife is a reflection of perhaps where mine hasn't turned to accept the means, or she's been unaware of the program, but just watching these changes happen in her husband and feeling first very, very confused by them. And then temptation comes in, but really the Spirit just draws her back to him, and he's just there with her as a soft place to land when it's time for her to surrender. And yeah, I just enjoyed, as you said, on the 43rd day, like the course is done, but like there's such the value is really seen in the movement in the mind, like the exercises that bring him into this state of mind. And so there's just such a peace and humility where he's able to really offer support and be a soft presence, but there's not a wanting to get anything. It's truly coming from this place of giving without an expectation. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Very touching. And yeah, just as you were talking, there's been a number of like sort of attached topics to this in my mind. One of them being stepping stones and temporary commitment. And actually, no, let's save that one for a little later. I'm thinking plan Bs actually, because I feel like there's an experience that Jesus describes in the Course that we've nicknamed the promise, where like when you, I don't know the exact quote, but basically when you've accepted God's purpose as the one function you will fulfill, everything just falls away and he just makes the path so clear for you. And I guess what I am really wanting to bring up for myself to move through is that it actually feels like there's this deep, deep pull. You know, there's something that's absolutely irresistible. And it's like David describes it sometimes as going down a water slide. And if you don't have your arms tucked in, it's going to be a pretty rickety journey. Like it's going to be, you'll feel the turbulence of the ego getting hit and hit and hit and hit and hit. So I think that's why that movie was so powerful as well, because the first 20 days he's looking for some kind of he's looking for some kind of reflection from his wife to say, good job. He's looking for approval. And this has come up as well. It's just a huge block. Like wherever I'm looking for approval is a huge block, because it totally is a distraction from actually an experience of going deeper. But yeah, I just wondered if you could share a little bit about that, because when we move towards plan A, which is God's plan for us, we're going to find where all the plan Bs are in our mind. It seems like part of that is just really fleshing those out and then really looking very honestly at them to see what they're worth to us. And we can either choose to continue holding on or to really let go and tuck our arms in down that slide.
Yeah, well, a lot of times people think of plan B as like, okay, Jesus is guiding me this way, in a specific, like go to a gathering or share a miracle here or visit a loved one, and plan Bs are anything that conflicts with that. And that's helpful in the beginning when the guidance is around a lot of specifics, do this, don't do that. But like in your case last night, we got in touch with a plan B being, you know, I want approval, actually. I'd rather have approval from different ones in this community, whether it be elders or other community members, than go for God. And yeah, I've always liked love Lisa about this. She always says, great, what did people come here for? Did they come for a relationship? Did they come for a sense of safety or comfort? What about God? What about God? And really that presence underneath. And if you've got that approval seeking mechanism on top, then it's always, everything is put in terms of do this to get the approval, don't do this to get the approval. And you can't really come from your heart, from true guidance, from extending. And then everything reflects that. And you woke up this morning after we talked about that last night and you could hear the birds, like it was a summer day for the first time. And you just said you had a crack in your mind. Just around that presence coming in. That's the commitment. That's the commitment to plan A, which is presence over approval.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. because it's like there's that irresistible pull. You know, it's so strong that it just, when I really get in touch with it, of course, it just obliterates it. It feels like being pulled backwards through a knot hole. Where it's like, yeah, there's tremendous fear. At least in my mind, in my experience, there's tremendous fear towards just, what if I really were to accept this? Is my one function like full? You know, letting everything really be used for that. There's a terror there. And it's been so wonderful having you here because, yeah, there's just a, wow, there's just a deep fear, a deep feeling to really move through the fear. Because it's as if I'm standing right on the edge of something. Like I can feel it, I can look at it, and I can actually get in touch with the feeling, just that real expansiveness in the mind of like, there is nothing in the way, nothing. And then it's like, I need somebody to push me out of the airplane or something, just jump.
Yeah.
So, and then wow, yeah, I've really been feeling that branching of the road section of the Course where Jesus says the way you came no longer matters. It can no longer serve. And basically you who've come this far can no longer can't make the wrong decision, but you can delay. And it's just like, that's the loop. It's like you know, I can see it, I can feel it, and I'm just waiting for somebody to push, but nobody's going to push me. I need to really see the value of jumping. So that's my prayer, like to see the value of jumping.
Yeah, and sometimes that value isn't seen until it's also seen there's no choice, which is why we've been talking a lot about comfort and false comforts. In that movie we watched, it was actually with Pete and Linda, because they were feeling they needed to make a sense of commitment. They'd been talking with Jeffrey and Suzanne. So at the end of the movie, I said, so what do you guys feel? And they were kind of like, yeah, we could do that. But Linda was like, you know, I don't really need to. I can see that, you know, if I've got a comfortable life, the need to make the commitment is there. And so part of our prayer is how to cultivate that need and not cling to anything that's actually delaying us from taking that leap. And that looks differently for everybody. That's why in the next month or two, this community will be, we'd all made a commitment for a year to even be here, minimum. I mean, some of us it was lifetime, but for some it was just a minimum of a year. And we'll be taking a look at that. What is that new commitment going to look like? Is it increase in time? Is it individualized commitment? Because as long as there's a plan B that can sabotage the Spirit's attempt to take you deeper, yeah, that's stupid. So we got to bring that to the light.
Yeah, and you were talking the other day, just actually in this whole context of temporary commitments and stepping stones is another way of putting it in mind, I guess, but like that you can't accept something more expansive until you fully embrace this temporary commitment, till Jesus gives you a new one. But I wondered if you could talk about that a little more too, because you were mentioning it, saying like, the way that you had shared it was that a lot of people don't really understand the value of temporary commitments. Like, what are we actually committing to? Looks like I'm committing to a year here in the community, but it's the emotions and the feelings that come with jumping into that are disproportionate to the form.
A lot of times, like I said in the beginning, you say, I'm going to commit to God, or we've even brought it up in this community. Okay, who wants to commit for a year? Who feels they can do that? I'd say you always get at least 2 or 3 comments. Well, I can commit to forgiveness, or I can commit to God or Jesus, but what's the point in committing to a form? I don't want to do that. But it's back to what I was saying. They're actually afraid of God, forgiveness, and Jesus. If they don't accept the form that Jesus is giving them, they're actually saying no to forgiveness. They're actually saying no to God, because what happens is when you say yes to the given assignment, whether it be a marriage partner, whether it be community for a year, whether it be to a diet, whatever it is Jesus is giving you, in order to actually say yes to those things, you have to let go of everything else that conflicts with that. And that's the ego. The ego will conflict with the guidance tooth and nail. So whatever the ego is saying against that specific helps you identify its voice. So that's how stepping stones take you in. Here's a step. Say no to everything that conflicts with that step. Vast chunks of the ego just disappear. And you start to generalize the lesson of, wow, when I listen and follow, no to the ego. And that's why Jesus says we're going to start working with specifics, and you will, because you don't know how to generalize the lesson. I'm going to forgive. Great. I'm going to forgive. How does that work if the things just keep repeating? But when you actually do a specific, it moves. Oh my God, this works. Another specific. Oh my God, this works. Another specific. Oh my God, this works. Until you start to get that feeling all lined up. Oh my God, it's generalizing. The specifics dissolve and disappear, and you're in the abstract, you know. That's my road to mysticism.
Yeah, I think mine too. Yeah, I have in my mind that we have these online retreats, and they seem to be very, very relevant. The topics that they're chosen, it's like, oh, okay, this is definitely for me. And that's the way I want to experience it too. So we've just come from undoing the doer, which, yeah, I have no idea how much healing has taken place there, but I can just feel that it's been absolutely huge in my mind. And now we're stepping into magnitude. So I don't think it's a coincidence we're talking about commitment now and embracing your life's purpose. So I don't know how much more I have about that, but something about that word magnitude, like that's what's waiting on the other side of the yes. Like that's what's waiting when you really commit.
Well, the atonement is a total commitment. And to me, that's the magnitude. That's like embracing your true life's purpose is embracing the atonement. And, you know, once the doer is done, then that's possible. I think that's why we put this retreat afterwards, but it's possible. I don't know, we haven't really joined on it, but still we're going to look at what is Jesus giving you, like maybe a special function. What is it that is a reflection of that total commitment to help you approach or stay in it that he's going to give you? So yeah, this next retreat, I floated a few fun ideas at the end of it, like we'll all just get together and discover everybody's special function, but I don't know how you do that in a weekend. But yeah, we'll just explore different ways to just totally get into our magnitude. And for me right now, that's just kind of experimenting and trusting that if I stay so riveted on this commitment to this present moment that the ego doesn't have a chance on entering. And that's also me surrendering to his plan and having no control over the world. So that's my individualized guidance for today.
I love that you brought up control, because I'll just go for it. I love that you brought up control, because as we were sitting, I just happened to go downstairs and you were listening to the commentary from David's lesson this morning, and a meaningless world engenders fear is the lesson. And there's just an invitation in the commentary to, at least in my mind, to really let Jesus write the meaning on the world for me. And as I did that, I could feel like I reached something, and then it was almost like you poke the sleeping dragon in the mind. Like I could actually feel something stir, like there's, like presence, and then it comes to this place where it's like, oh, you've touched a nerve, actually. And it literally felt like I'd touched a living animal or something, like a bear that was sleeping. And it felt like when I was just like, oh my God, Jesus, what is that? That's control. So I would love to hear anything you have to say about that as well. Because it has to come up and out, but maybe that's even what the fear is. It's like, what have I even touched there? How is that going to come out? What is that going to look like? How do I move through that with grace?
That's beautiful. Yeah, first to acknowledge that, and then, okay, wow. Well, the thing is, the ego is directing the mind all the time to stay asleep. And so, to me, the short answer is that giving ourselves over to Christ's control is the true answer, because to just go at that by yourself, I think that's impossible, actually. That's like the ego. There's a line that I always loved in the Course that said, when you attempt to hear voice for God for yourself alone, you are attempting an ego alien journey with ego as guide. And I was like, wow. To me, that just undoes this whole idea of I myself personally, and I'm going to listen to guidance and then follow it. That's another version of my Holy Spirit. Well, it can be a very early stepping stone to truly undo control. If you want the Holy Spirit to be his guide, you now open your realm from this idea of I'm going to try to hear an internal voice to I'm going to let the whole world, the whole universe, all my brothers and sisters, everything that, I was going to say David, Jesus, everything that gets sent to me, help guide me. Like I was sharing a miracle with you guys yesterday because I went to this movie with Ken because we were going to have this deep one-on-one to really sort through some things in his life. And he shared for like 10 minutes. And I remember David had sent me this movie he and Svava were going to, and I thought, and Ken had just mentioned the word tyrant, and tyrant was in David's description. So I thought, let's go to the movie. But we were like 8 minutes late at least. And we sat down in the theater, and I missed at least 3 to 8 minutes. I don't like missing the beginnings of movies. And David was in there, so I thought, I'm going to go up and just ask him if he could fill in for me. I was like, I don't want to bother him. And so 5 more minutes went by, so now we've got to fill me in 13 minutes because he doesn't know when I came. But anyways, I went up, sat down with something. Before I even sat down, he's like, hey, all this joy welcoming me in the theater. And he just automatically starts filling me in on the whole movie, like a pure channel for exactly what was needed for my mind. Relax that actually I didn't miss anything. And it was just, I don't know, I was filled with so much joy. I went back down and I just thought, to be in that space all the time where you're just tuned into what serves the whole in every given moment takes a listening to the whole, actually. And then, I don't know if this even relates to your question, but then afterwards, he and Svava decided to join us for the big talk. And I sat down, I said a line like, well, yeah, I really wanted to explore this and this and this. And then just Ken sat there, and then David just like, yeah, we feel da-da-da, or this, just sharing some ideas, and what do you think? And Ken was like, yeah, the whole thing was done in like 3 or 4 minutes. And I was just sitting there in this, like, I don't know, just beautiful experience of like, I have no part in the awakening. I'm not needed. There's no feeling out. There's no needing to investigate. And it was something about it was really kind of deep for me, because even a one-on-one skill of like, I'm going to join with somebody and feel, no, it's still all Jesus's plan and Jesus that does everything. And if you have any specific skill that you think you're good at, Jesus will use that. But it's still meant to be washed through and undone and surrender into that total letting go. And I have no control over anything. So, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, that touches on something else I was thinking about too, which is the giving over of skills and abilities. Because when I first came into this ministry, like I love to plan things, except for the show. I love to plan things. And I ended up in touring, which was supporting David and you guys. Actually, you guys did a huge tour all through Europe, and it was like a helpful retranslation of some of the skills that otherwise would have been used to sabotage my awakening. And yeah, I'm given this new function with PR. It's not a new function, but I feel like I have zero skills in this area. It's amazing. But I just wondered if you could speak a little more about the giving over of skills and abilities, because this is the next expansive step to see that my skills aren't needed. I don't know if you're able to pick that up at all, but something about it's related to undoing the doer, because if I think that I know what I'm doing, I will try to do it. But that's why this new expansive step is given, is so that I can see that I don't need to know.
Yeah. Well, everybody intrinsically likes to be helpful. It's just, I feel like that's an service. You know, everyone loves to be in service, because it may look like initially like they get positive feedback, they get reflections of, oh, thank you. You know, even in terms of the world, one of the greatest lines that they say is service to others. You hear that in, like, even the Way of the Peaceful Warrior, service to others. I've always felt it's a limiting statement, because it still believes in others, and we take it much deeper than that. But since there's kind of a universal recognition that that's helpful, when everybody just says, okay, I've got these skills and abilities that the ego has trained me to do to keep the self-concept going, to be a good person, to survive in the world. You know, as long as that's there and it's been used, then Jesus wants to use those skills that the ego made and line them up, first kind of more on the alignment of serving more than just you and the self-concept, but others. But gradually in that, it expands even beyond that. And skills truly given are given over to Christ. And new tweaks come in, and new ideas and things you never thought of. And people are always like, is it this or this? Jesus says, no, it's the third option. And you're like, oh my God, I never would have thought that. And one of the lines, I think Ricki, one of my first quotes, she said, quoted me was, I've never been happy doing something I knew how to do. And what I meant by that was, like, even if you have skills and abilities, if you're operating out of the I know mind, it still doesn't bring you happiness. You still have to give those over and say, okay, I know how to use a computer. Okay, I know how to make phone calls, but show me how to direct those, channelize them into one way that even transcends me thinking I know how to do all of that, and let me, you know, bless the universe and be happy. And so for you with PR, I think that's why, you know, you've been in contact with some different ones out of the box, where they may come down and work with you, and you'll work with them to expand your mind on what you think a Course in Miracles student is, or what PR even is, instead of, yeah. So we're just joining with you on how to expand your perception of PR, because you had shared with me that 80% of your time was doing documents. And yeah, I don't think that's PR, you know.
Not expensive, no. Yeah, it's amazing too, just in the last few minutes that we're here, because my experience with those ones, these collaborators that are wanting to come in, is it's literally like an email I'm getting ready to delete. And it's like the subtlest little, like, maybe you should just follow up with that. And it, like, from there, it just, like, the one tiny little push, it's like a top that spins. I like to think of it this way sometimes, like a top that spins, and you just every now and then have to go to keep it going. Like, it's so easy, actually, and it just unfolds pretty rapidly from there, like exponentially. So it's been this contrast experience, even, of when I'm sitting doing, and then there's this other way that comes in that's like, wow, I actually didn't know I could do that. And it's not coming from me, and that's why it's enjoyable. Not enjoyable, it's very, very wonderful. Yeah.
Well, one of the stories we just had up in Camas was, forget who it was. Oh, Andy. You know, he was given the maintenance area, and he's never picked up a shovel before, so he didn't even know how to shovel snow. And he was supposed to arrange all the heat, and one of the heat was broken in the office, and he didn't know what to do, so he just prayed and laid his hands on the heater, and it started working. It was like, now that is how a true mechanic fixes things. It just blew apart, like you had to go in and get the tools out there. I like that. When these ones that come into the ministry have no idea how Jesus works through them.
Wow. Feels like a really beautiful note to end on, actually. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. So I have a few things. I have actually a lot of things to share with you. I think off the top, and I don't have all the details about this, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. David's going to do a couple of live broadcasts. One is a live radio interview with Jennifer Hadley, and that's on January the 29th. As we get more details about this, of course, we'll post this up on the events page, but we're just starting to get these things pieced together, but I wanted you to have the dates in mind. So January 29th is a live radio show with interview with Jennifer Hadley. And then the next day, January 30th, there's a live interview with Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen is the man that wrote the foreword to David's new book, This Moment Is Your Miracle. So there'll be a live interview with Alan the next day. So January 29th and 30th, keep those dates in mind. A couple of beautiful live interviews coming up with David and friends. The next thing to talk about is SpiriTV. Man, this thing is just changing and turning and twisting. It's fantastic. Just to bring you up to date, Jason and Jeffrey's morning shows are in hiatus, but will start again on February the 4th. And also Jason's From the Bottom Up, which is not being shown today, is actually moving to a new day, which is Saturday. And his first show in the new time slot will start on February the 9th at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Let me just switch screens here. I want to go to, all of this information, of course, is available on Spiri AI. It's the absolute portal to get all the information on SpiriTV. So just following through with that, just going to go through the schedule for that's upcoming. Modern Mystics is on Monday, and it's at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then following that, again, Jason, the Wake Up with Jason show will start again Monday, February 4th from 7 to 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. The First Step with Jeffrey, Tuesday, February the 5th, the new startup, 7 a.m. And we mentioned From the Bottom Up with Jason and David, that coming up Saturday, February the 9th. So lots of things moving and changing with SpiriTV, but the absolute best place to stay on top of all that is at the new spiri.ai site. So that's a great place to go and stay up to date. You know, just following up on the Spiri app, it's just going great guns. You know, as you know, it's free. It works for the iPhone, iPod, and iPad. The Spiri bot, again, on Facebook is always available. So you can join into that. And also a reminder about the SpiriTV YouTube channel. Great channel to subscribe to, and all the new stuff that's coming out from the ministry is going to get posted up on that channel. Just trying to think what else. Yeah, This Moment Is Your Miracle. Wow, this thing is just taking off, just great guns. Thank you so much for your support. There will be a new email coming out very shortly with some even more great giveaways to keep that momentum rolling. And you know, the prison ministry is just going so strong. It's just beautiful. If you know someone who's in prison or another type of institution, and you think would like a copy of the book, Jeffrey is taken on this beautiful task of sending a copy to each person as he gets the information sent to him. The best way to do that is to go to his Facebook page, which is Jeffrey Thomas, Thomas, and you can send him a private message. And in the message, if you include the person's name, their inmate ID number, and then the prison or institution address, he will make sure that a copy is sent out to them. I'm just amazed at how that whole thing is just taken off. It's just a beautiful thing to watch, and just watch how Spirit is helping, spread the word. And again, as I've mentioned before, this moment is your miracle. This whole thing that we're going through, I even want to almost call it a ministry into itself, is not about selling books. It's about getting the word out. And certainly that's been happening beautifully over the last period of time, and will continue. The book's available now for pre-order through Amazon, as you know, and should start shipping on February the 2nd. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, I think that's it for me for the moment. Next up will be Divine Intervention with Ken, and that'll come up in about 9 minutes. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Perception is the realm of the five senses. Perceptual problems are never real problems, although they can point us back to the one problem of believing in separation. Never real problems, although they can point us back to the one problem of believing in separation. Perception is the realm in which we appear to be in. This was highlighted for me when my sister got married. The day after the wedding, people from different generations were gathered watching TV. It was a comedy special. Because there were so many of them, I couldn't see the TV. All I could see were faces turning red, eyes shifting around, some embarrassment, some downright humiliation, and some outright anger and rage. And then my brother-in-law fell out of his chair and rolled on the floor, laughing. They were all watching the same images, and they were all listening to the same sound. Yet they were each seeing something different. They were having such diverse reactions, and they were giving the meaning to those sounds and images. It wasn't the images that were making them laugh and making them rage. It was the beliefs in their minds that they reacted to. A world is going on in our minds, the world of images and the thoughts we're thinking. This is the basis for how we perceive the external world. It's more accurate to think of the eyes as projectors rather than receptors. The eyes are projecting what the mind is thinking and believing. Because of the filter of consciousness or ego, the body senses a world that is part of the projection. So we are just drawing forth witnesses to what we believe and think all the time. We perceive what we believe, and without attack thoughts in our mind, we cannot see a world of attack. That's why the only solution is in the mind.
We're here to say that you have a very powerful mind, and you can be guided precisely, specifically, to unwind from all ego thoughts and beliefs. The only way out of the maze of time and space The only way out of the struggle, the only way out of the confusion, is the only way into the kingdom of heaven. The only way out is the only way in. And it's you. Who is the you? That's the way, the truth, and the life, speaking to you, speaking through you, shining through you, smiling through you, laughing through you, bringing love, gratitude, joy, and inspiration. It's the way shower. If you were caught in a maze, if you were lost and you didn't know how to get out of being lost, why wouldn't you turn to one who is found? Why wouldn't you turn to the one who found the way? That's not a man or a woman. That's not a form in time and space. That's the eternal spirit inviting me to remember God. Wow. I'm like, wow.
Does your life feel like it's out of control and moving too fast? Do you find yourself frustrated by little things? Are you having trouble communicating with the one you love? Are you preoccupied and aggravated with the endless game of living? Take a time out. Breathe. Help is here. The 30-day Unwind Your Mind experience is a 30-day mind detox that can help bring you to a real day-to-day experience of peace. During the program, you will receive an inspired teaching delivered to your inbox daily. You will have the opportunity to join a private, interactive Facebook group where you can connect with mighty companions. You can link into weekly movies with live commentary and the opportunity to ask questions that may have arisen from the emails. As you allow your mind to be guided into a peaceful way of being, joy will return. Join us for the next program.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Just getting ready to join with Ken in Divine Intervention. And there we go.
Well, good morning, everyone. So Anna's not with us today. Hey. Anna's not with us today. She's at a family wedding. So I'm joined with a very special guest, Andrew Warwick.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
You
It's
know
a pleasure
some
to be
people.
here.
You know some people up there too, don't you?
Oh, wow. Hi. Holy cow.
Yeah, so you came a couple of days ago for 3 weeks. You're staying in the community.
Yes.
And felt drawn to be together and to link with me.
Yeah, sure.
And we met like almost a year ago now, last February, wasn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
And we did a couple of projects together, and it was like really a healing time. And then you were sharing with me that I never really left your mind. And now here you are back. And it just felt like something really, really healing happens between us. And it was so interesting that Anna wasn't here due to the wedding. And so I felt like, oh, I think Andrew's supposed to come on the show. So here we are. So I just wanted to like ask you, like, what was that call in your heart to really come this time? I know like it's been a really deep process since like last year. Something's really shifted for you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, things have been shifting in my life for several years now. And I just felt the extreme prompt about a year ago or more to continue on some rehab that was really needed. And I came down here I called it mind rehab, and back home for people. And when I got here, just the way that I think, the way that I can express myself, the concepts of no private thoughts and no people pleasing was just, it's not overwhelming for me at all. It's just, I just feel at home. And so when I got here, I just knew that I was at the right place. And I knew that it stuck finally after all these years. When I went home, the praying every day and the meditation, my meditation stuck. I didn't miss a day while I was gone. And so I knew I was coming back. I didn't know where, I didn't know when, but I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'd be coming back.
Oh, I knew you'd be back.
Yeah. And when I was here, we had this link, these projects that we were doing together. And with these projects, and of course, this open-mindedness, being able to share your mind, I knew that these epiphanies that were coming in, well, when I was away, they kept happening. And every time these epiphanies would come in, you would come to my mind. And so I was just overwhelmed with you and with here. And then when it all came back together, when I came back, I walked through the door of La Casa and I actually felt like I was at home. When I landed in Vallarta, I remember walking to my hotel room. And when I took every step, the vibration and the energy of the body from being home from work and all that just lowered with every step. And I just walked into what felt like a home or a piece where I knew the split mind separated and I was just here only working and all that's gone. So I was like, okay, this is amazing because I don't get that back home, and I just this feeling of so much gratefulness. And then walking the bus journey down here and walking through and seeing you, it just all came together. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, so our kind of history is kind of similar. Our pasts have been quite similar, and it's like there's been this sort of like connection of some sort of like deeper healing that's happened we could say we've lived a bit of a colourful life.
Yeah, that's an
rebellious.
understatement.
A bit rebellious in our time. Against the rules of life.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were just like sharing like that often on the spiritual journey. Like I'd found that like not many people have been kind of like violent, and we've been violent in our life. Street fighting was kind of became quite normal to us, and it's like becomes like an everyday occurrence. It just becomes like normal. And then you kind of go on this journey, and then you seemingly meet these people who haven't done these types of things. And for me, it was just like, I felt like I had to like keep it like down.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like I'm trying to change who I am, but deep down I have all these shameful feelings, guilt, embarrassment, and nowhere to be able to express it. So I was like so grateful that I could come to live in miracles and have that that space to be able to share that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. You know, what comes to my mind right now when you're saying all this is when I was very young, it's amazing how I think now compared to them. And when I compare, I just remember, for whatever reason, I was getting into the little scuffles, whatever, but that's grade 3. You know, I used to ask my dad, my father, how do I deal with this? And his response was hit him 10 times as fast, 10 times as hard, in 10 times the worst place possible. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. And just when I grow up with that, my mentor, I grew up with that, I just didn't know any different. But I knew all along that underneath all of it, there was something that was missing. And I just didn't outsource that. I didn't go down the pathway of finding out what that was. I just woke up every day remembering that I needed to put on armor. And I just went out into the world always expecting an attack. So I was always ready for it. I didn't know any other way of living. And it's just amazing thinking that the world is always attack defense.
Yeah.
Only to find out now that that's not a part of my life at all. Yeah. It's amazing, the disparity, the difference. Just shocking, actually.
Yeah, thank God for the course to actually be able to take it back to our minds rather than, okay, the world is against me.
Yeah.
I've got to protect myself.
Right.
And these seeming situations, which is not my fault.
Right, you're not my fault at all. Totally. And you're preparing for all of this attack, which you actually put out there. It's just constantly this loop that my mind was in. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And once I broke the loop, I just made all this room for all this love, all this peace. And it's overwhelming.
Yeah, and it was so interesting, like we were talking about the other day, like what was that really all about? And through this exploration, I found like I was so wanting like contact and to be really met. And somehow in this grievance, it was like a no holds barred, in the complete and utter moment, in the now, with somebody, testing your skills. And it's just this deep like call for love that in the world just seems completely and utterly crazy, but like you're just wanting something much, much deeper. And it seems to give you something, like you just feel alive or something. But yet deep down underneath it all, there was like this call for love. But somehow, as you said, through the upbringing, through seeming these ideas that were in the mind, like love, that was the last thing that was on my mind.
Right.
But yet it was like this deep call for love, and in so much fear. And as you said, like, okay, I'm going out to defend myself, which means that I believe in attack.
Right.
And so when I'm always thinking about that I'm going to need to defend myself, the reflection's going to come back to be attacked. And yet sometimes it seems like, well, I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And this scenario plays out. But thank God for the course that could see like, oh my God, I created all of that in my mind to simply heal it and bring it back to here, rather than believing that I'm a complete and utter victim of the world that I see.
Yeah, and I guess at one point through all of this tumultuous and adversity, through all of it, there's just eventually you either succumb to it or break in it, or you end up in jail or something, or you switch and you realize that there's got to be a different way. And I know for me, when I was about 20, after most of my fighting and most of my violent sort of life had ended, I remember being in bed and I just woke up from a fresh sleep, and I was very angry. And I remember asking myself, why are you angry? And the answer blew my mind. The answer came back saying, well, because you're angry. And I just remember shooting up out of bed, like just looking, what? Like as if I was talking to myself. I had nice sports cars, a beautiful home, all to myself. And I had everything a guy would need. And I remember sitting there going, except I don't have an answer to this. The answer is because I'm angry, and it didn't sit well. So I remember sitting there for a couple of hours until the answer that came through was deeper than you're angry because you're angry. And from there, I spent the next 2 years going deeper and deeper, asking why to everything. I had to know, why are you sad? Okay, well, I had to come to some sort of resolution other than because you're sad. And from there, the journey just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and I don't know why I asked myself that question. All I know is that I screwed up in the answer, and in screwing up, it made me realize the insanity of it. And here we are. That was that pinnacle point.
Exactly.
What was it for you?
I think the turning point for me was I felt like I was at crossroads, and it was almost like I was on this dark edge. There was this complete and utter dark edge. I felt taking far too many drugs, so I had to I had to look at the situation. So the situation was, okay, drug overdose,
right?
Kill someone, be killed, right, or end up in prison for the rest of my life. So that was the four. Probably that was the best I was going to hope for in going in this direction. And I was stood there, and I thought, thank God my mind clicked in, and I thought, do you know what? That's actually the easiest thing. That's the easiest route that I can go. But what about if I actually turn around and try and deal with this? And so I thought, you know what? I love a challenge. The hardest thing is going to be facing all this. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to face everything that I've done. So I just turned around and got a therapist and started working through everything that I'd been through and that I'd done. So that was the turning point for me. So yeah, I felt very grateful for that. But yeah, I didn't come to the point. I didn't know why I was doing it either. That's the kind of interesting thing. When you get angry, it becomes normal. It just became normal to be angry.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why I'm angry.
Right.
And then as you said, that thought, because you're angry, and it's like, that's not even.
It just doesn't satisfy you.
Yeah, it's not even an answer.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that's consistently fueling. But yet you came to the point where you question that, like, no, that can't be who I am.
An answerless guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're being fooled by the ego that we are this terrible person. You've done these terrible things. You're never going to change. You're angry. You've done this. You've done that. But thank God something. It's kind of interesting, because I would say to like my friends and that, I actually understand why they don't turn around and want to look at the thoughts, because it feels really, really painful, and there's so much suppressed guilt. You know, like what we talked about, like you get into trouble, you have a fight, and then afterwards you actually do feel really guilty, and then it's like your friends come in, your like thoughts come in and say, no, he deserved it.
Right.
And so it picks you back up again to say, okay, you're justifying in your mind, but all the time you're just suppressing how you're really, really feeling about yourself.
That's interesting. I'm looking at the suppression now, because at the time I remember not feeling guilty at all, because I thought it was a way of life. Like when I geared up for war, like geared up for a day-to-day battle, it was just like, this is how, and I thought normal was, this is the way everybody lived, only to find out later on that I was the one that thought like this really only, and that the rest of the people around me didn't look at life as a battlefield.
Yeah.
So that was neat, because then I was able to warm up to more love or a more friendly way of living a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because I was the abnormal one in a way. But at the time, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
And not having the opportunity to express any of that growing up, or missing the opportunity, missing the prompts.
Yeah.
I didn't, and I just felt it was one way. But then making the shift now, I am so happy. It's such an afterthought. It's such a, it's not a part of who or what I am now at all. I don't think about those things at all. Just distant memories, which is helpful.
It's interesting what you said, because in that environment, really what you want to do, you want to express how you're truly feeling, but everything's being suppressed, but you can't express to anyone because no one in that circle is going to understand you. And it's like so important that really we have this opportunity to express. So I can see, like when you said, like you're so grateful for when you come, that you have somewhere that you can actually continuously just express what's going on, because something's been so suppressed that needs to like come up. So I feel very grateful for that. And then we kind of have each other to like, wow, to kind of explore it so I can let go of it in my mind.
Yeah, I like having you as being, you know, someone very relatable.
Mm.
It allows just some of the fleeting and obscure thoughts that come up to let them go, because you can relate to me a little bit.
Yeah.
And the way you phrase some things when you say them to me, it allows me to really realize, yeah, you've gone through a little bit of what I've gone through, and that you're with me on this trust that we can let it go together.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, actually, because I felt so alone for so long.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very, very lonely.
Yeah, doing this together, and I'm really realizing how helpful that is.
Mm.
Yeah, it really sucked doing it all on your own before.
Yeah.
Thinking that you were all alone, thinking that you're the only one that could help yourself. Yeah, this has been really helpful.
Yeah, I think like this time as well, when you've like come here, I don't know, something in like my guilt is sort of like swayed, because like there was sort of like an innocence about how you talked about the past, and I'd still like had this hardness a little bit around it of like, yeah, I've been a terrible person. And like there was this sort of like lightheartedness about how you were sharing. I know you were being completely honest, and somehow it was like, yeah, it was giving me permission to say like, no, I don't need to hold on to that, to the past of who I thought I was, or still who I think I am. I can let go and begin to let this innocence come through. And I guess that was something that was very unfamiliar to us: innocence, love, joy. Just having that true meeting with another, which is really what we absolutely craved. Even at that time, it was just a complete and utter call for love. And one of the interesting things I want to talk about, how did we get on this spiritual journey?
Yeah, no kidding. You know, that's so interesting, because when I look back, I was 4'11", 72 pounds, and I had a heck of a mouth on me. But it was really like, you know, I only just thought, okay, that's what the way it's going to be for the rest of my life, only to realize that really underneath it all, when I think back, I know it was a bit of an attack defense or whatever, but really I feel now like I did have a lot of love to offer. I just had no way of showing it, no ground to walk it. And now it's so open. I get to do whatever, whenever, and everybody welcomes it. So now it's so flipped. It's a double blessing, because I've gone through so much in my mind, hard stuff. I'm not going there anymore. I don't need to. So when it comes up, I have a place to let it go. But B, all I have room for, all I want is a much more loving environment. And that's what I'm getting. And that's what we can all have. It's just kind of overwhelming, actually, some days, and a lot of days unbelievable. But when I left back in March, I was, you know, I did my own form of meditation every day, and that's what I knew, that my new path was going to stick. But also, I was always waiting for that ego backlash, or that ego flip, where what you've got is going to end. I was always waiting for it, but it never came. And now it's been almost a year, and it never came. This new course of action has been the way to go. And so you ask, you know, how did we come to this? Well, all it took was one thought of the change, and then seeing love in its pure form, even just the slightest, and knowing that's what I want. How do I get more of it? I don't care how you find it or how it looks, but how do I move in that direction in any way at any time now versus the other direction? I've had enough of that, right? So I've had enough of that other direction.
Yeah.
And so there's no guilt in leaving it. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. It's this is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, in a way, like when you remind me, I can't really describe it, but like even through all of that, there was always something that was loving there that I couldn't get in touch with. Like there must be more than this. There's more to me than this hatred, really. It's self-hatred. There's more going on, but it's like I didn't know how to cultivate that within inside of myself. And it was like flaming, firing the flames of anger and whatever was pretty easy, but underneath it was like something calling, like, no, this is not really what you're actually asking for.
Right.
And I guess that's what has really helped in seeing it, is that there was just really this contact, this love. It's like a dance, like two people dancing. It was actually this, again, this deep call for love, but there needed to be able to put that in another way, because it's interesting, because we both have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I feel like my energy's gone down so much from that, but I used to be really, really like so energetic. And then meditation was the thing that really, really helped me. I never thought that. I didn't understand when people said calm. I just felt on
Agitated
edge,
all the
completely,
time.
all the time, even in bed.
Yeah.
I'd go to sleep and I'd be on edge. And so I never knew it was actually possible to be peaceful. And I think that was another turning point actually for me, was I had so many thoughts going on all the time. And when I found out about meditation, I thought my only prayer was, God, I just want peace. Yeah. I just want some peace from this. And slowly through the practice, then something like softened inside, and that this like murmur just like stopped. And that was just, wow, I just felt so grateful for that. That felt like massive to me.
That would have been a huge shift.
Yeah. And that's almost like what happened to you from the last time. You've noticed that your energies really started to calm, and that's been a real comfort to you since February.
That's funny that you say that, because I don't know that where I'm staying right now in La Casa with you, everyone got a bit of a briefing that, Andrew's a little bit spungy, he's a little bit wiry, whatever. And Melissa was telling me, I don't see that at all. Like, he's really calm. He's really down there. I'm like, who's she talking about? That's all I've ever been told is, high energy. That's funny. Yeah,
because I really felt like from meeting you a year ago when you very first came, you had so much energy just came from whatever you've been doing. And then this time, as soon as we sat together, you were just like really like present and calm. I was like, wow.
Yeah, the meditation part of it, like for me, dedicating that time, whatever the time was a day, was huge for me. But the biggest problem I had with the meditation was I went by other people's terms about what meditating was. Like, I had a preconceived notion about that I needed to meditate a certain way in order to do some healing. So I had such a resistance against that, I actually wouldn't meditate at all. I didn't realize that was the process of what was going on for years ago, because I kept hearing the word meditation. There was a lot of likeness to it, but then these ideas, the ego was saying, well, here's what meditation looks like, so I wouldn't do it. But now I came up with my own terms of meditation, and kind of every day meditation looks a different way each day. But what I do know is that each time I meditate that's comfortable for me, it brings me such a level of peace that I just keep going in whatever way is easiest in forms of my meditation. And I've found it working wonders every day. So it's like some days I might be playing some sort of music, but I find that level of peace. Another day I'll just get silence. Another day, it might be some background noise like a dog barking, whatever, but there's always a different way that I meditate in the moment. And I've just found that there's 10 different ways that work for me. And I've been able to find that using that approach, I can drop in, I don't know terminology, but like I drop into where I'm at, where it's needed a little bit easier without that edginess, that you talk about, that vibration. Yeah, it kind of it dropped away, it fizzled away. I don't know where it went, but I'm glad it's gone.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what was it specifically that really drew you back this time? You're staying for like 3 weeks for this moment.
I'm a bit stubborn, and I knew, like, I remember talking to my brother, Jason. I remember saying to him, he says, well, what are you planning to do this winter? And I said, well, I'm going to Mexico. And he's like, well, you don't just do that. You kind of need to pray into that. Like, we look at these things and we pray into them. I'm like, well, that's fine, but I know I'm going. So like in my head, I was just like, I'm going there. So I mean, I don't, and it's funny because it coincides a little bit about how things around here change all the time. It's like right in the moment when I know I'm going, I've got my time off, I'm going to go. So I just knew I was going. I just didn't know how it would look. And that's really all I needed. Like I needed, and I felt spirit guiding me to wrap things up back home, like clear your mind, clear your mind back home so that when you're there, you can be there. And I'm starting to see the difference of that every day. Like when you're focused on something, really give it your more attention and you'll get more out of it. And that for business mind, that's like, yes, then I'll get more, quote unquote, you know, monetary assets, business, guys, development of growth and stuff like that. But when it comes to peace, same thing. Switch it over to focusing more on the peace and you get more of it. So that was kind of my approach. And it's working out. So I haven't solidified any sort of process yet, but you asked, so there's your answer.
Yeah, I just feel very grateful that you've come and that we get this opportunity just to really like share this again. It's like I was just sharing with Laverne, like, and you come in, it feels like there's something working in the background of like me, like something softening, but I'm not really too sure of it. I'm not so gripped on thoughts of anything. I don't feel like there's anything pressing to explore, but just something in just being together feels like something's just being released in that. So I just feel so grateful that we've had this opportunity to come back together for this time and whatever that's going to bring.
Yeah, I feel that too. I don't know what that is or what that means, but I really feel like when we're together, like the steady, the calmness. And I only mean that because I've sensed or felt what I would have thought was your uneasiness or whatever, but I've seen even in you, maybe that was me that dropped, I don't know, but I feel like the overall energy between us has really settled. So
Yeah.
That's a great thing. It is.
That's it.
It is, because what I find with the calmness, I can see things a little bit more clearly.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel as sporadic or loopy in my head.
Yeah, it's great that we can take it back to our minds and see, oh, this is me softening, this is me like relaxing.
This isn't Ken, this is me. I'm like, but I didn't think I was hard to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's weird too. Yeah, this is just really, really joyful to be here. I'm learning a new way to express the word joy, because every day it feels like a new plateau gets toppled or wrecked. There's a new mountain that I get to climb of joy. That's a hell of a goal to have.
Well, you've been practicing a lot of gratitude, haven't you?
Yeah. It's amazing how when I first looked at being grateful for something, at first I was like, you know, I actually questioned the authenticity of what was grateful. But once I was like, hey, scrap that sounds weird. You know, like, go just be grateful for things that are just abstract. And then I found that there was so many things to be grateful for. Then I had to actually calm that down. The list started getting too long. It was like, okay, well, let's I think there's something deeper here to look at. So I started endeavoring that. But yeah, that was just a really good stepping stone, to be grateful for things. And I knew that because when I would outsource and I would ask my friends, hey, what are you grateful for? Nobody could come up with any answers at all. So I was like, okay, well, that was definitely a good stepping stone. But now the word joy seems to have being something even greater than grateful. Yeah. So it was a good stepping stone. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Okay, so 2 minutes is coming on the screen. Yeah.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, it really was. So I'm just so looking forward to seeing what really happens and just the healing that's going to take place. And yeah, we don't have to know.
That's an absolute pleasure to know you, brother.
Thank you so
absolute
much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. And I'm in a lot of joy.
Yeah, so good to see you.
Oh, that's right. I do know.
Yeah.
Hi.
There's Anna.
Yeah, Mira. We love you all so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, that was beautiful. Two joyful, gentle men. Thanks, guys. That was very inspirational. Loved it. Okay, some more sharing. So apparently I have this need to be very specific about dates. And I've just been reminded that with the changes coming on SpiriTV, that the dates that I talked about for Jason and Jeffrey are approximate. They're not cut in stone at the moment. So even more reason to stay tuned to Spiri.ai to find out what the actual schedules are. We're hoping, a lot of this depends on the completion of the new studio. So these dates, as far as the shows coming back, are not, as I said, cut in stone, because they're dependent on the completion of the new studio. So approximately the beginning of February, things will start to change on SpiriTV, and hopefully the building schedule will be sorted out, and those dates can happen. But Spiri.ai, that's your source. That's the best place to go. All of the information will be there and be kept up to date as we find out what the new schedules are. Okay, talking about events, just want to briefly touch on some of those. February 1st, of course, is the Next Awakening from the Dream live online retreat, Stepping into Magnitude, and it's the perfect follow-up to Undoing the Doer. You know, let's undo that, and now let's step into what our real purpose is. So I'm looking very much forward to that retreat, and that starts Friday, February the 1st. The early bird special is still on. It's available until January the 15th. So please take advantage of that. There's a nice savings of some of those silver coins and green strips of paper available till January the 15th. February 22nd through the 25th is Listening to the Still Small Voice. That's Jackie and Kristen, and they're going to be doing that in Denmark. So that's something to look forward to as well. And then Ricki is on the road. Ricki will be back today, of course, with her show. And then she's on the road March 21st through the 24th. She'll be in Edmonton, Canada, a place that's near and dear to my heart, putting on a lovely retreat there called Going Deeper. And then on March 28th, she is global hopping, that's for sure. She's going to be in Portugal from March 28th to the 31st. And then following up on that, May 17th through the 19th is A New Generation Speaks. It's a Miracle Network conference in the UK, and Frances Zhu will be there sharing all that she has learned. And I love this. I love the title, A New Generation Speaks. That feels really cool. And then finally, this is the last event that's on the schedule. That'll of course be updated as time moves on. August 2nd through August the 6th is the Awakening to Love Enlightenment Retreat. And there is still early bird pricing available for that retreat until January 31st. So I think we're up to date with all the upcoming events. Okay. Up next in a few minutes will be Ricki with Humbled. Stay tuned for that. See you in a few minutes. In a few minutes will be
The world is not the cause of our state of mind. Choosing our thoughts is where the state of mind comes. We are empowered to have peace of mind consistently by realizing that we choose our thoughts, and we can choose to align with very peaceful, loving thoughts that come from our source, our creator, and be very peaceful. And if we don't, then we will perceive things that seem to be external causes, but the external causes aren't really real. How to decide with God, all decisions become as easy and as right as breathing. And it will be as if you are carried down a quiet pathway in the summer. And it will be as if you are carried down
world has not yet come to a comprehensive awakening.
What is Spiri? Perhaps you know Spiri from our chatbot that lives on Facebook Messenger that helps walk you through upsets in your mind. I just feel so honored to announce Spiri is transforming into something much more than a chatbot.
There's something there, like we all feel this spark. You know, we're always following just our inspiration. That's what guidance is.
Spiri is going to end up being this sort of umbrella for everything that we're doing.
All of our videos and shows will just be called SpiriTV, and then we have the bot, the Spiri bot. Everything about Spiri is just going to reach people in a new way. Like, everyone in this universe has a deep desire for God, and like they just might not know it, they might not be aware of it, but it's there.
Whether you work at 9 to 5 in a cubicle or you're a teenager,
Well, everyone, even people who haven't heard of spirituality,
you just want to be happy. Like, that's what's appealing about it.
and that's not going to change our content. Like, it's still going to be very deep, just as deep as it always has been, and always deepening actually, and always uncompromising and always very practical. And that's what I feel like Spiri is. It's a symbol of the whole new direction. Yeah, the comprehensive awakening, it's like we're all going to wake up at once. We're just following that inspiration and following the guidance moment to moment. And right now it looks like Spiri.
We're here to say that you have a very powerful mind and you can be guided precisely, specifically to unwind from all ego thoughts and beliefs. The only way out of the maze of time and space, the only way out of the struggle, the only way out of the confusion is the only way into the kingdom of heaven. The only way out is the only way in. And it's you. Who is the you? It's the way, the truth, and the life speaking to you, speaking through you, shining through you, smiling through you, laughing through you, bringing love, gratitude, joy, and inspiration. It's the way shower. If you were caught in a maze, if you were lost and you didn't know how to get out of being lost, why wouldn't you turn to one who is found? Why wouldn't you turn to the one who found the way? That's not a man or a woman. That's not a form in time and space. That's the eternal spirit inviting me to remember God. Wow. I'm like, wow.
I've built a shelter for your heart and cover you with roses, the color of the sky. I'll walk with you in sunshine, down paths that we all know, to a place we've been before.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Just getting ready for our next and our last show, which is Humbled with Ricki. And I see her smiling face on the screen, so I'm going to pass the microphone over to her. Take it away, Ricki.
Thanks. Thank you, Jeff. Hey, guys. Hi. I see you guys. Okay, I actually have a title to this show. It's called Fear is Not Real. So Carolina will be writing that down in her little booth. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I kept hearing Will Smith in that movie when he says, fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. This is near insanity. Fear is a choice. So I got really fired up about that because these last lessons, I've always been in love with the text of A Course in Miracles. It just kind of calmed me and it made sense in contrast to the religion I was raised with, Catholicism. And the lessons, I had to learn to be attracted to the metaphysics. And I mean, it's so exciting. But anyway, this year with the lessons are not leaving my mind all day. I don't even have to try. It's just time. And when it's time, it's time. So I just had these lessons, these past few lessons in my mind. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. And a meaningless world engenders fear. And so I just feel like the show for me has been the opportunity to really teach what I would learn, to just talk about what's happening in my mind. And it's pretty cool because I think it was yesterday I had a feeling of chaos in my mind, but I had an expectation that I would be very, very excited because it seems like the last part of the school fell away for me. The last thing I was doing was showing up for expression sessions. And then I went to get my plate and I heard Emily was in there with them. And I was like, oh, I guess it's been handed over, that part. And so I went back into my room and I was like, okay, what do I do? It's too soon to start packing because I don't leave for like 8 or 9 days for my tour. So I was just sat there and I was uncomfortable. What do I do with myself? And I didn't go try to write a song. I didn't go for a walk. I didn't go out to dinner later that night. I didn't distract. Because I was trying to find what to do and I just had to be with it and let it be given. I feel like there's always this in between when we're ready to go to the next level of our healing or our new assignments or letting go of the past. There's always a period of discomfort, no matter what it is, or seemingly. I mean, for me, I usually just get really excited about change, most change. But I don't know, I felt uncomfortable and just, pissy yesterday. And so I just was with it and I didn't like it. But then by the end of the day, I had a tour call and then Emily thought of this movie to watch with the house. And like, I was just whipped out of it. Like I just waited instead of trying to make things happen. I asked Jesus, I said, what would you have me do? And nothing came in. So I had to go with that. It wasn't going to be the ego. Oh, I'll go out to a movie or I'll go shopping or, whatever. I didn't do that. And so I'm grateful. I mean, we just have to accept sometimes if we're asking and praying. So I just feel like this has like kind of 3 parts to it. Fear is not real is what I really want to discuss, except that last weekend's retreat about the guidance is still very, very prevalent in my mind. It's so important because if we ask for guidance, that is going to take us out of the fear. And then I have this feeling of judge not because, yeah, just bear with me. So I'll just read a few things. I've been listening to David's lesson every day, with commentary and with the text. It's really helpful to take a part of the text and then the lesson, do the exercise. And then sometimes David's commentary just opens up my mind so much more than what I would hear in just the words of the course. I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to see what needs to be seen. So, all right. So some of the things Jesus said in these last lessons in the text and in the lesson was that my control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can take over everything that does. Guidance, once again, if you so choose. Fear can be self-controlled. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of mind. So there's three parts to what I want to discuss. This is what Jesus says, raising body thoughts to the level of mind causes fear. Also, when you are feeling separate, that is always the cause of fear. And also that he gives us some simple steps, the way out of fear, which is surprisingly love. So, I mean, it's just all like truth is streaming, like you hear it when you hear it. But this is really exciting to me because I can see that it never needs to be there. Fear needs not be. And you guys know I had this glimpse. I had the glimpse 20 years ago where I had no thoughts in my mind at all for a week. And I was literally the presence of God. But I didn't do that. Okay, that was a glimpse given to me. And now Spirit is saying, take these steps so you will see the power of your mind, the power of your choosing. I can't just give it to you. I gave you the glimpse. Now let's take the steps so that you can know your own power. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts at the level of mind. So, I've had a lot to heal. I've talked about it with like body things, looks and stuff like that. I was raised in a family where I thought that was, I had to unlearn that doesn't matter. And so, when you are in a relationship, your body is more, you're in your awareness, And so in these last 6 months, I've been in this room, not in a relationship. And there was such a lightness in my mind about my body. I wasn't aware of it anymore. I wasn't looking at it. I really didn't leave La Casa much. So the only times I even thought about my hair and looking good was if I had to come and do the show. So it was very freeing for me these 6 months. And like, Emily was saying, you don't even worry about, you don't ever gain weight. And I said, I would always fluctuate, but I haven't thought about it anymore. And it just doesn't change. There's no body thoughts. So my body has actually been the most ideal size. There's no clothes that don't fit anymore. And there's no thoughts. So this is how my experience is. Wow, I haven't had my body in awareness and it hasn't been in my mind. And you can go even much more deeper when you have thoughts of sickness and fearing death. And I always had thoughts that I was going to die when I was a kid. So these thoughts came back up to be looked at. And I noticed that those feelings of fear of dying and sickness weren't in my mind. Now I leave in almost about a week. And so about a week ago, I started thinking about what I could do because I was going to be in a relationship again. You all know I'm engaged and I haven't even had a date. So body thoughts are back in my mind. And I'm thinking this whole past week, I started to feel so uneasy and uncomfortable and unhappy. I was trying to eat certain things and control my, just like, I got to get my skin right and my hair right and my body and literally misery. I wouldn't have ever really seen it had it not been such a contrast experience of not having the body in the awareness. And then I started to think about like organs collapsing, eating these healthy foods and remembering fears about what I did to my body when I was a wild child. And I started to think, what have I done to my liver, my kidneys, my lungs and smoking? I'm telling you, the whole death thing came back into my awareness because I was trying to see if I could look, make sure I looked good if I was going to be naked again in front of someone, right? I hate to say it, but that's what brought this all on. It feels very deep. It's because it feels extremely simple. Literally, if we do, like I told you in that glimpse, I had no thoughts in my mind. The minute my looks came back into my mind, I was in this deep depression. All of a sudden, it took me all the way to death and organs failing. Okay. I'm a very healthy person. I've lived in a spiritual community for 7 years. There's no distractions. So that's one thing. I'm very excited about this because now we know what not to do, how to stay in the presence, body thoughts. That was one. Okay. So I just want to continue reading here. Why do we condone insane thinking? We are only responsible for what we think. What you do comes from what you think. So I started thinking about my body being seen again, and I started acting like a crazy child, eating different things, worrying, all kinds of things. So he says, what you do comes from what you think. Place what you think under my guidance, which is what I did. That glimpse was what that glimpse gave me. Whenever you are in fear, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate, meaning allowed your mind to go astray, and have not allowed me to guide it. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind and not your behavior. Now, this is a matter of willingness. You do not need guidance except at the mind level where change is possible. So we're giving our minds over to spirit. We don't have to go there. We do not have to go to those thoughts. We do think we need to work these thoughts out in our mind. We're thinkers. We want to figure it out. And yet it's the complete opposite. You don't have to go there. So freeing. So he says you should ask for help in how these conditions came about, the fear. Okay, so one, he said we were raising body thoughts to the level of the mind. And now he's going to say the separation. He says, before you choose to do anything, ask if your choice is in accordance with mine. That is guidance, guys. So the way out of fear is to take these steps and to remember to stop and ask for guidance. Okay. You can read this. This is what I was thinking. Like, you can read the book back and forth. You can join with your mighty companions. You can express until you're blue in the face. But if you don't stop and ask for guidance, then it's not going to change anything, because you're going to be deciding with the ego. You're always deciding with the ego or the spirit. So you can read this book. You can do all these things. But if you don't stop and pray all the time in everything, is your will in accordance with his? Okay. So maybe you're doing that, but there's resistance. Maybe you think you want your own will. So fear is always a sign of strain. It arises when what you want conflicts with what you do. When there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. Your mind is then split and your behavior becomes erratic. It takes a decision to only do God's will. An undivided decision to bring the mind under the Spirit's guidance without conscious effort is possible. But you must develop a willingness that most do not have yet. The strength to do this comes from your undivided decision. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you realize that it is your own. So that's the battle in thinking that there's a sacrifice in doing God's will. And yet every time we do our own will, we're so miserable. So it's just a practice of saying, okay, I surrender. I think I want to go here or do this, but I really know from past experience, from the contrast experience, that only your will make me happy. And the sooner we get on board on that train, the more we're going to see and be convinced that only his will makes us happy. And it makes us so happy. So it's very exciting stuff. So I I'm really excited just because of all these thoughts together in my mind are making some kind of clarity for me today. Like there's no reason to ever think a separate thought again. That's my feeling right now. So, okay, it's a very simple lesson, Jesus says. He says, only your mind can produce fear, and does so when you're wanting and doing or discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal: healing, forgiveness, atonement, awakening. The first step, he says, they're very practical. I love this. These are practical steps about love. You got to love this. First, know that this is fear. It's fear. There's only two things. If you're not in love, it's fear. There's only fear and love. It's the whole course. Number two, fear arises from lack of love. Number three, the only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. And number four, perfect love is the atonement. So how have we thought about the atonement in the past? There's many ways to think about it. It's like, okay, seeing the false as false. The past never happened. Forgiveness. This is a dream. This is not real. It can't hurt me. I'm the Son of God. But perfect love is the atonement. Okay. When I thought of this, I'm like, okay, Jesus is going to give me some practical steps. Oh my God, it's like the rules for decision. I have to think really hard and like get really clear. But it's so simple. Love. So that's when I saw in my mind, oh my God, we have a choice. We have a choice that we just noticed that we saw a thought of separation. We felt excluded or unloved or unwanted or lonely or left out or a memory of a childhood pain or whatever it is. Oh my God, but we can just see that we're thinking that and see that we have a belief and decide, I'm not separate from God. Give our mind back to Jesus, who said that under his guidance, we're completely healed. So there it is, you guys. We don't have to work it out. And I just have to say, it just hit me like, my God, these steps. It's what we've heard our whole life. It's love is the answer to everything. Love is all you need. All you need is love. Only love is real. Love heals all things. Love is who we are. There is only love. It's the answer every time. Don't try to work it out. You're feeling separate. Give your mind back to Jesus and say, please guide me out of it. We're back to guidance because only Jesus knows very, very specifically how to guide you out of fear. I was watching this movie on Netflix yesterday in my what do I do? Can I get out of my room? What can I do to have fun? No, you're going to stay with me. So I was guided to just start this episode, and it was really weird. I think it was called The Affair. It's called The Affair, and it was so surreal. Like I knew I couldn't get into all the episodes. I would never have time for that. But I watched the first one and maybe the half of the second one, and these people were both married and they had an affair, and they would say scene 1, Allison, or part 1, Allison, and then half the show was Allison, and they'd say part 2, Noah. I couldn't believe it. They showed what the perception of the affair was from Noah's point of view, and then they acted out a whole different show. It was the same thing that happened, like a child choked or their first kiss or how they flirted. But it's from Allison's view, it was a completely different story. Like the first story, from his view, she was totally coming on to him. She was this hot thing that he could have never, not been attracted to and wanted. And then when they showed her perception, it was completely opposite. He was coming on to her. She was innocent. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa, what a trip. Because, they didn't really tell you what they were doing at first. You just started watching this movie and you're like, oh my God, which one of it's true? Which one of it really happened? And then you're like, oh my God, none of it happened. It's all our perception. Such a trip. I mean, my mind kind of went into trash watching it. I'm so used to watching like Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, but I was like, oh no, Spirit can use everything. I'm supposed to be watching this because I can see that none of it's real. It's pretty cool. So let's see where I left off. yeah, I just got really excited that there's practical steps to come out of fear by remembering that there's only love. And that's what the mystics are talking about, you know? The presence of love heals all things. Stop working it out in your mind. You have a holy mind. You have the mind of God. Do you think God would be thinking any of these thoughts that you're thinking? You were made in his likeness. So really, it's always an identity problem. It's love or fear, or if you're identifying with a body, or your true self, which cannot think its way out of anything. It's pretty cool. I'm like really excited about this. Let's see what else I wrote down. You need only to accept the need for the remedy. You have to recognize that you need help. The need for the remedy, perfect love, atonement. None of this is real that you're thinking. None of it matters. This is how true healing occurs, Jesus said. You need to accept the need for the remedy, not just the remedy, but that you need it. We all experience fear, but you must, it says, why does it occur? You must realize the power of the mind. It never sleeps. It's always creating. So as these thoughts are happening, you're making this world that you see, this nightmare. It's pretty cool. I love this sentence. It says, I'll just read it so I can quote it right, because it says, thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. Your mind. Can you believe that your mind can move the form of mountains? But when you're aligning with the thoughts of working it out, or being unloved, or feeling separate, or being ugly, or not fitting in your clothes, like you're creating this world of, you know, starvation and hunger and abandonment and rejection. And then you give your mind to God and let go of these thoughts, or watch them and just notice them. Give your mind back to God, and we're going to have a power surge that can move mountains, which I did experience in my glimpse. I mean, the whole world was just like attracted to my presence, and I was just above the whole battleground for a week. It's very profound when you actually witness the power of your own mind and get to see the contrast of what happens when you're not aligned with spirit, when you identify with the body, and when you're aligned with spirit, to watch long enough to watch the whole world change in front of you, every person. There's this quote in the Course that says, you know, like the wind, the trees and the leaves will bend to shade you, and everything kind of just falls at your feet. It's so attracted to that presence. The form just collapses into only love. So a couple of my mighties, I just glanced through Facebook for a minute yesterday, and this was the only thing that stood out. I think it was Susanna that posted it. And I got judge not because it's I got judge not out of it because it's your judgment that engenders fear. It's your judgment that starts this whole swirl of fear. And it's a quote from one of the lessons that I was just saying. It says, if you could accept the world as meaningless and let the truth be written upon it for you, it would make you indescribably happy. But because it is meaningless, you are impelled to write upon it what you would have it be. It is this that you see in it. It is this that is meaningless and truth. Beneath your words is written the word of God. The truth upsets you now, but when your words have been erased, you will see his. That is the ultimate purpose of these exercises. So this, what I've just read to you, is a prayer for recognizing that everything is neutral. This is My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, and that I can let go of any personal interpretations and be open to what he would have me see instead. So, and all that is a practice of not judging when you look at something, like just catching yourself, like, oh, I see that I think I know what I see and I'm interpreting it. And just look at it in wonderment, hand that perception over to spirit and just say, okay, now you tell me what this is. Because your interpretation is making you afraid. It's making you so fearful. So why would you even want it? It's not true. That's what we're learning. So can I open it for, does anyone have anything to share? I do have 5 minutes. If anybody has anything to share. That was what I was going to do today, but then I had something to heal. So I have the truth sowing through my mind and I want to keep it. If I see a hand come up, I'll stop talking. But 5 minutes isn't much time, but I just spent my whole life in fear. And I remember recently telling my dad, he's like, are you, you're not, this is not a phase. Like, again, like they thought I was going through a phase when I came out as gay. And now they're like, now you're in a cult and it's just a phase, right? They're like, it's not a phase. Why? I said, well, I just lived my whole life in fear. And I'm learning that there's only two emotions, love and fear. And I'm learning that I don't have to be in that fear. And my dad was like, wow, I never knew you were in so much fear. And I was like, well, isn't everyone? But my dad drinks from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed. So I guess we all have our way. I'm not judging anymore. I just accept him for who he is. But I know I can't call him after 3 or he won't remember what I've said. So, it's like we all have our distractions so that we won't. Oh, a hand up. Okay. Bernie. Oh, his hand went down. Okay. Oh, his hand's up again. Okay. Let's have Bernie. Hey.
Hey.
Can't hear you yet.
Okay, no?
Hi. I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you want to share something? Can you hear me, Bern?
Yes, I can hear you.
Did you want to share something?
Mm.
Oh. Do you have some fear right now?
I think so, yes.
No. Yeah. I'm hoping Jesus will just dissolve it in our silence. Because where 2 or more are gathered, He's just makes it that much more powerful. Did you think of a question, or did you just want to?
I think I just wanted to be seen. And yeah.
I see you. I'm really grateful that you just even, this is a step, guys. I mean, really, it's a huge step. Sometimes there's just such a fear of being seen and even putting yourself out there. So I feel you. Is it Bernie? Is that your name?
Yes, it is.
Bernie. Well, thank you for, what's that?
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us have you in our mind, your beautiful face and your presence. And we're just with you and whatever's happening. But yeah, anytime anyone wants to just say hi or just be with us like this, I feel the power of it. So thank you. Thank you. I love being around people like you because like I can't stop talking. And then there's these ones who come and they're just presence. And I always get paired up with those ones. So I'm grateful. Okay, well, I'll see you guys next week for my last show before I go out on tour for like 6 months. So I'll see you guys next week on Humbled. Love you.
Thanks, Ricki. Thanks, Bernie. Yeah. Just being seen sometimes, it's so important and so fearful. It's a great stepping stone, just to be seen. Okay, well, talking about being seen, I think I've seen everything that I need to share with you. So that brings us to the end of our broadcast day. But as you know, there's lots more coming up, as there always is. So check out spiri.ai. Make sure you check out livingmiraclecenter.org/events, and stay in touch, please. We'll see you next Sunday. Bye for now. Thanks for being here.